For your consideration on any podcast player, search Solid Verbal, find us, and hit follow or subscribe. It's just that easy.
Dan Rubenstein, it is time for another edition of our annual tradition on this show, the NFL Draft Preview episode that we do every year with our good friend Nate Tice from over at Yahoo Sports. It's back. It is back. Happy April. How are you?
I'm good. Love the draft. Love seeing evaluations. Love seeing how people are looking at various college players that we've watched over years upon years. Love having Nate on the show. It's very detailed, very thorough. I don't have a ton of interest in Shedeur Sanders, even though that seems to be what moves the needle. I hope he has a long, happy, successful career, but I think there's a lot more to the draft than just, who drafts Deion Sanders' kid. So yeah, it should be pretty exciting for me. I don't watch it live generally, but I will catch up in chunks, and that's kind of my favorite thing.
I love the NFL draft. I do.
Amazing.
And it is one of those points of intersect, I say this every year, between the college fandom and the pro fandom. You've got pro fans who don't care at all about college, who suddenly care a little bit about it. And then you've got college fans who don't care at all about the NFL, who suddenly care a little bit about where their favorite players are going, even if they're not their favorite players, just names that they have come to know over the last 2, 3, 4 years. Where are they going? How will they impact their new teams? And I guess more to the point with this show today with Nate, how do people who are really smart about football view some of these names that we've come to know? Shedeur Sanders had a hell of a career, apparently getting his number retired in Boulder as a result of it.
Mm-hmm.
How does somebody who evaluates talent, how do they look at a guy like a Shedeur or Cam Ward or some of these other names that have become a little bit more prominent through the draft cycle here? It is one of those shows that I think is able to bridge that divide. And so that for us is pretty cool. That's why I like doing this show. And it helps that we've got a good friend in Nate who is very, very good at what he does and can articulate these points far better than you and I could.
Hey, real quick, it'd be great if you could consider subscribing to the YouTube channel down below. It really helps us out. I also appreciate how draft picks and trends and narratives reflect upon schools, right? Like Texas doesn't have an offensive lineman drafted forever. They should have multiple, including one in Kelvin Banks, who should be a pretty high pick this year, a really well-regarded tackle. And if it's the goal of every top flight or medium flight high school recruit coming into college to figure out a path for himself to get to the NFL, and this school and, Michigan gets so many players drafted and Bama gets so many players drafted, then there's a surprise school that gets so many players drafted. That's always cool to see because that reflects really well upon schools and coaches, and it trickles down to recruiting and playing time and transfers and development. Like, it's all sort of interconnected, and I appreciate that.
I do as well. So we're going to have Nate on here momentarily. We're going to talk about all of the questions that we think college football fans would care about with respect to the upcoming draft. It's not this weekend as we record this on the week before Easter. It is approaching. So it's going to be next Thursday. They do round one, then Friday and Saturday. We will talk about it, I guess, on social media or wherever you can find us if there's anything that jumps out to us in the moment. But this is a pretty good preamble to what is to follow at the end of next week. Of course, if you like our show, hit follow, hit subscribe so you don't miss any of our episodes. A lot more going on in the college football world now than we perhaps anticipated at the start of the week. We will get into all of those subjects and much, much more. Of course, if you want to support verballers.com, verballers.com, that is our Patreon, Dan. Let's just jump right in, shall we?
Let's do it.
All right. Well, this is sort of our annual tradition here on the Solid Verbal. We are pleased to welcome our next guest back. I believe this is the 4th straight year that we've been doing our version of an NFL draft preview. Of course, you can find all of his fine work out on Yahoo Sports, where he writes. He does the Football 301 show. Nate Tice, welcome back, my friend. How goes it?
It's going well. I was waiting for the message from Dan. I was just kind of like, it's like, it's April. Should be coming. Should be coming. It's like, hey, at least comment. Like, we know it's coming around. And no, so I'm very excited to be here. I love this annual tradition that we have started, our fourth one.
It's the Tom Cruise coconut cake of the NFL draft. You know about that, Ty? Tom Cruise has like a famous coconut cake that, like, if you're on his good side, you get it every Christmas time.
That's funny. The old owner of the Timberwolves, Glenn Taylor, because it was only a month ago that he finally got his dirty mitts off the ownership. Glenn Taylor was famous for, and this is so Minnesotan, his wife's famous lasagna. So they would, it was that's how you knew if Glenn Taylor took a liking to you. He not only invited to your house, but the wife cooked lasagna for you. And then that's how you knew who was going to be a long-term Timberwolf. And this is so mom and pop Minnesotan, like one of us kind of thing. But that was like always a telltale sign. And so like reporters knew, it was like, did they make you the lasagna? And a couple of guys were like, oh, no. It was like,
like Johnny Carson not inviting you over to the chair or getting Carmelo Soprano ZD. Oh, man, I love that.
Yeah. No, not Mrs. Taylor's lasagna. That was how you knew.
We need to come up with something now, Dan. We can send him a hat. Well, I don't know. We'll come up with something here to make it worth his while.
Okay. I'm going to send him lasagna.
There you go.
I'm not cutting corners here.
I thought it was like TRL. I had to be on here 40 times and then like something happens or something.
Yeah. That's exactly right. Ty, where are we starting? We got a lot
to talk about. Nate, you published your final big board on Monday. You had 6 quarterbacks inside your top 70. Of those, I believe only Cam Ward was inside the top 40. I have loved Cam Ward since 2021. When he first transferred to Washington State, I remember talking to Dan about, I watched all of his tape from Incarnate Word. I was very, very into Cam Ward. The best of Cam Ward is Heisman caliber. The worst of Cam Ward is Gus Frerotte trying to throw left-handed. When you do your eval on a guy like that, how do you weigh the highs versus the lows and some of those bonehead moments? How do you get to wherever you get to with Cam Ward?
And 3 different teams.
Yeah, 3 different teams too. Yeah. Ward is a fun watch, like first and foremost. And I think that's just even watching TV copy and just watching any Miami games last year or Wazoo. My exposure to Cam Ward, my first exposure was one time someone tweeted at me and goes, "Did you watch this Cam Ward from Incarnate Word?" And I go, "Sorry, I don't have access to the Incarnate Word tape. So I'm sorry, but I'll watch him at Wazoo." And then they played Wisconsin. And he was basically a one-man show and went to Madison and just took over the game. And I was like, this guy's interesting. Put him back in my mind. But watching with Ward is the highlights are always going to be the creation plays, much like top quarterbacks in the NFL. You see a Mahomes, you see a Josh Allen, you see a Lamar. The plays that grab the highlights are the crazy stuff out of structure when they're by the sideline, throwing sidearm, getting tackled, throwing backwards. So when you watch that, and you watch a Ward or a guy like Ward, you go in thinking, okay, maybe this is how he's going to play. This is how he's going to win. But what is really kind of cool and why he's the 1-1 and definitively the 1-1 to me, and a guy I liked, and I wouldn't say I fully love, but I ended up liking, like a 6th grader, is because of what he did in structure. And that's because that's how you have to win in the NFL. Like out of structure stuff is essentially has become a prerequisite to win as an NFL quarterback. But first and foremost, you have to win from the pocket and win as a passer and win as a progressor. And if you don't win that way, then you have to be an elite athlete. The guys at the top have that perfect balance. Lamar has had to find the balance. Josh Allen has had to find the balance. Mahomes has been underrated from his in-pocket work. He's become a pristine operator from the pocket. Watching Ward, that's what really grew on me when watching him, is that even if it looks funky and unorthodox, the sidearm throws, flat-footed, everything looks like a trick shot, the timing that he plays with is very good and actually very polished, and more polished than I think even people make him out to be, because you see the crazy plays out of structure in the sidearm throws. But even some of that creativity and ad-libbing, as I like to put it, he'll do it from the pocket. He'll throw there's a play against Syracuse that sticks out to me more than anything. It was a 3rd down. There's an over route just coming over the middle for him. Guy's screaming down the middle right at him, and he throws basically a submarine pitcher around the guy. And the timing of the throw is perfect. 1, 2, 3, ball out. Most quarterbacks would hitch, panic, find a check down, start scrambling. because he threw in an unorthodox way, he managed to stay within the structure of the play. And I think that's a huge asset, because those are NFL throws. There's not a lot of 1, 2, 3, hitch, throw. Oh, that was great. Unless you're Jalen Hurts with the Eagles and the Eagles offensive line. Like, he's one guy that kind of gets that over and over. I'm not trying to knock Hurts. It's more a compliment to the offensive line. And watching Ward, all the stuff he does in structure, that's what won me over. And that's where I say this guy gets it. This guy, maybe there's some blemishes where he tries a little too much, but I think the adage or the line I've been using is that he's a jazz player that knows how to read sheet music. He can be ad-lib and go nuts, but he knows how to, play Ode to Joy. He knows how to play hot cross buns. He knows how to kind of just do the basic stuff, but he just sometimes adds a little flair to it. And really, that's what won me over on him, because of that ability to play in structure, even if it doesn't seem traditional in a sense.
Well, he's going to be the top overall pick per all reports. In the universe of other first-round quarterbacks, not necessarily guys who went 1 overall, let's say over the last 5 years, how do you think Cam Ward stacks up if you're like evaluating across multiple draft classes?
The guy that I really, this is not a one-to-one player comparison. This is more of a stock and evaluation comparison, like where I have him graded. Kyler Murray, and Cam Ward. That flawed, but has a lot of qualities, but is not a perfect, like, oh yeah, this is exactly how I picture my quarterbacks. He does everything perfect. Like, I think one Cam Ward blemish is he has smaller hands, 9-inch hands, and he had a lot of career fumbles. And actually, I think some of the small hands shows up when he's trying to push the ball deep. The ball can kind of fade on him a little bit because he just he throws sidearm, small hands. It's just a physics kind of thing. But that, again, when you're taking a guy top 10, top 5, number 1 overall, you have to, every blemish has to be not even just microscope, highlighted, spotlighted, circled, underlined, italicized, any way you want to put it. And so, like, that's how Kyler was to me. Kyler had a great arm. Kyler was able to throw deep, but Kyler's 5'10", 200 pounds, is not perfect. And those were some of his blemishes. So that's probably the tier I'd put him at, which to me is a first round quarterback, a guy that you take top 20 in any class. And then depending on how the other quarterbacks get inflated. But that's how I kind of view him. Purple chip is to me what I consider Drake May and Caleb Williams last year. A blue chip to me is a guy that goes top 20 in any class. That was Jane Daniels. And then I would say Cam Ward to me is just a tick below Jane Daniels. I came around. I originally had him kind of graded similarly to J.J. McCarthy last year, but I would actually give Cam Ward just maybe a little bump more, just a slight bump more. But that kind of tier in between Daniels and McCarthy from last year. The year before that, probably similar to where I had Stroud. I was Stroud, Richardson, Bryce Young. In that class, but Richardson and Bryce Young were the same grade. That's the same grade as kind of McCarthy. So that kind of tier as well. But they're all different quarterbacks. That's just more the grade. But just how they win and how they get there is all different discussions. But that's just kind of the grade I see them as.
It feels like the bigger debate this time around is not QB1, it's QB2 and QB3. You've got Shedeur as QB2. QB3, not my guy, Jackson Dart. I believe you're on the Riley Leonard train.
The only one.
It's one.
Not a train. It's a push cart.
A push cart.
The one that you pump on the track. That's me with Riley Leonard.
You've described him as a day 2 dart throw, which I am immediately going to induct into our lexicon here on the show. Like, what stood out to you when you're trying to grade the other quarterbacks in this class? Like I said at the top, you had 6 inside the top 70 of the other 5 guys here. How do you grade them out?
Yeah, none of them I think should go in the first round, not even with inflation into the 20s. And I'm including Shedeur in that discussion. I've been kind of lower on Shedeur throughout the process. He still ended up being QB2, but it was almost like by default, the 2 sweetest words in the English language. And they, like, by the time I came down, I ended up with him in my 40s, which felt fair. And it's more of a pessimistic 40s than a bullish 40s. So, but it was really more of a statement of what this class is that a lot of these guys I tier the same. I view them as 3rd rounders. But quarterbacks will, if you have guys graded similarly, quarterbacks will be on the top of the tier. So they ended up getting on the top of, you can kind of see where my grade breaks are. Wherever the quarterback is where I'm starting a new grade break. And then you can kind of just see it throughout the big board. But that's how I view these guys. And like a guy like Tyler Shuck, who really won me over with some of the, he could spin it. It's just that there's one thing with tape. It's not the whole player profile. He's going to be 26 as a rookie. He's had injury history, and then you look at what kind of injuries did he have? He's allergic to getting tackled. Is that because of the injury stuff, or is that because of how he plays, doesn't take sacks? And again, Shuck won me over. He ended up being my QB4 after Shedeur and Leonard, but I had Leonard and Shuck right next to each other. And that's just, they're two different profiles completely, because Shuck, to me, I understand the argument for a team, maybe like the Browns, maybe like a team that says, all right, our roster's not bad. And in theory, we can take the older quarterback because then he can maybe transition easier, and he has some ball skills and some throwing skills. So that's a guy, as I watched him more, he really won me over. But I also have to be realistic that he's going to be 26 as a rookie. The oldest, if you win the first round, it would be the oldest first round rookie since freaking Brandon Whedon, who's 29. Way to go, Mike Holmgren. But I love bringing that up over and over and over, that happened in our lifetimes. That happened a decade ago. Like,
what round was Chris Wenke taken in? Was he
fourth? I think third or fourth.
So but he was old. Yeah.
Okay. Chris Wenke with the Panthers. The year they went 1-15, and they ended up getting Julius Peppers. So this was in 2001. Steve Smith's opening touch. Rookie Steve Smith returned kicks, took one to the house right in front of me. And then Chris Wenke was the quarterback for the Panthers. And I think he had a rushing touchdown. I remember just being like, even as a kid, I was like, man, Chris Wenke just ran a touchdown on us. They won that game, and then they lost 15 straight. Like old QB, but I can understand the theory of them and discussion on why I ended up high on Leonard and why I ended up bullish on him is it's not because of any of his interviews or anything like that. It is a athleticism. I think Riley Leonard is an excellent athlete on my scouting scale. I go good, very good, or great, and then excellent, and then rare, elite, top of the scale. I think he's a phenomenal athlete. I think he has a feel for in the pocket and mitigating sacks. And I would say some of the throwing stuff is one of those things that I'm like, there's some good, but then there's stuff that's like, okay, you need work. With Leonard, I'm willing to, I wouldn't say wave away, but have more arguments for that he can develop because he came to being a quarterback late. He was a receiver first in high school. He was a basketball player. He wasn't a kid at 9 years old was going to camps as quarterback. And so there's more to, in theory, this is all theory, this is more to tap into with his athleticism, what I think is a very tough player. I mean, obviously, anyone if you just watch the national championship game, he's tough. But if you just watch him at Duke and then Notre Dame, toughness, mitigates sacks, excellent athlete, flashes some high-end throws, and ability to get rid of the ball and not take sacks. That's just a profile I want to work with, as opposed to, no offense, but Dylan Gabriel. Dylan Gabriel is 5'10" and maxed out. And then it's like, yeah, I get it. He does more throwing than Riley Leonard, but we're not talking about 22 years old. We're talking about where they're at 25, 26, Tyler Shuck's age, 25, 26, 27. So that's why I ended up kind of becoming bullish on him. He has, I usually like guys that are more wild horses that you rein back in, but Leonard, you want him to push the ball a little bit more. And that's a little bit of like, all right, well, Duke, the O-line wasn't great outside of Graham Barton. The receivers weren't great. Notre Dame, those receivers was a converted lacrosse player and a tight end with a gimpy leg, who I do like, Mitchell Evans. But those were his receivers. And then the offensive line was very young. When I like a quarterback, I watch way too many of their games. So I watched way too much Notre Dame this year. So I knew their whole personnel. Texting Mike Golick Jr. all the time. Like, who the hell is this receiver? Like, does he even not know how to run a post route? But I'm watching it. So I was willing to wave away some of his blemishes. And I don't know. That's just, a day 2 dart throw. I think he's going to be a backup. But I think there's stuff that you can tap into that there might be a starter in there in the third round. But sorry, I know I'm explaining a lot of these here, but
that's good.
Sure, just start with the guy that if I say that name once, our social team at Yahoo was going to clip it for Twitter.
Right.
I could be talking 99.9% of other things. I could be talking about anything. If I just say that magic word, it's going to get clipped for social.
Content gold.
Oh my God, it's shoot.
You
you clicked on my big board and you even said that it wasn't Cam Ward at the top or anything like that. It was Shedeur Sanders outside the top 40. And I was like, come on, guys, you guys are killing me here.
Yeah,
I'm trying to talk about other things here. But no, I could talk a little bit more why maybe I'm lower on him, but I already rambled for enough about Leonard and Shuck.
I'm curious, though, because you talk about Riley Leonard and the things he didn't have at Duke and maybe the things he didn't have at Notre Dame and still having him as high as you do because you see physical potential there.
Right.
One, is there a quarterback that has been a success story who doesn't throw the ball in big games? Like, is there can you look at somebody like, oh, this guy was so raw, but once he got to the most difficult place to play football and was asked to do something he wasn't necessarily asked to do in college, he thrived. It just seems like you're searching for hope with Riley Leonard.
He's not a triple option quarterback. I could pull up game 1 against Texas A&M, and he's going 5 routes through the progression as he's working through the pocket. He's handling pass protection. He's way more advanced. It's just that they had to run quick game because they had to get the ball out of his hands. So when it's not a mental capacity, it's a comfort and offense capacity, which is a big difference in argument. And I mean, shoot, I could pull up Indiana where he's throwing 2 A+ throws, including 1 40 yards down the field as he's getting hit. Going against Ohio State, he gets the opening drive, gets absolutely shellacked, and then he misses 3 throws. And that's honestly, I watched that game back. I'm like, what am I thinking? And then if you get past those 3 missed throws, he turns in 2.5 quarters where he looks like a dude. And that is, again, you don't want to just go stew it and go, oh yeah, graph go up forever. But there's more polish in the second half of the year than I think it's getting made out to be. It's just that their offense, their passing game wasn't advanced. It was a quick game passing game, an RPO passing game. But I am willing to wave that away because of what I think the circumstances were. I think they were just terrified to drop back not because of Leonard, but because of the circumstances around him and the ecosystem around him. So that's the argument I'm making for him.
Right. Non-NFL receivers. I think that's all reasonable.
Yeah.
Is there a quarterback in this class? You talk about the non-structure plays of Cam Ward, but also being really good within structure.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a sort of inverse of that where you're like, I don't believe in him improvising, but if he gets to the right situation in the right system, he will step into the pocket and quickly get through progressions and make quick decisions. Yeah. Is that Tyler Shuck? Is that somebody else where you're like, if he's in a safe place, I believe in him?
Well, Shuck a little bit, but Kyle McCord from Syracuse kind of grew on me. My comparison for him is kind of a backhand compliment, is that he reminds me a lot of Scott Tolzien, who is now the quarterback coach of the Saints. I used to back him up at Wisconsin. But that's what he reminds me of. He's just accurate. God, he plays completely different than he did at Ohio State. It's so funny. Also, shout out to whoever calls plays for Syracuse. I actually really enjoyed their offense when just watching it from afar. He's accurate. He played on time. He's not going to create it all, but he's you can bootleg with him. He has enough movement ability, and you can point and shoot with him, and he can deliver accurately. I think coaches are going to like him because of those aspects. I think Shanahan coaches will like him, like McCord's skill set, because they see some of the accuracy, see some of the throwing on the move, and that's kind of what they like. But that's McCord to me. Some of the creation stuff, it's like, but when he's in structure going 1, 2, 3, ball out, oh yeah, it's good. Right. Just don't watch the 6-pick game or whatever that one is. So other than that, it's some of the other performances by him. He was probably my last quarterback I evaluated, because it's like, I know what Kyle McCord is. I know what he is, but I was actually pleasantly surprised watching his film about how well he performed in structure. So I think that's the guy that kind of plays that way.
I like that Ty asked about previous classes. Who are the transformational players at the top of this draft that would go top 10 pretty much every year, are just so different, are such unicorns? Obviously, Travis Hunter is going to be the first name that comes to mind.
Yeah.
But who are those guys that you're just like, yeah, this guy comes around once every 4 or 5 years, and when he does, I don't care what your defensive line looks like, I don't care what your secondary looks like, you got to have them. Who are those guys this year? See,
that's the thing. There's not a lot of those this year.
Okay.
No, Travis Hunter. It's a good class, though. It's a weird, and I think others have kind of used this, but it doesn't have those true purple blue chips. It's a lot of green chips, what I call. A lot of good players. But Travis Hunter, I don't know if you guys heard of him. Good player. A good player.
What do you do with him, by the way? Corner, receiver, both?
I like him at corner.
Okay.
I think he is. I mean, he's a special athlete. The top of my scale for athleticism is Randy Moss. And I think Travis Hunter is a tiny Randy Moss, and that's my best way I can say it.
Yeah.
I said this on our show. And I didn't even remember this. It was like in the heat of the moment. I remembered it as I said it. He's like a tiny Randy Moss. Bobby Bowden said that Deion Sanders is his parameter for athleticism, and Randy Moss is a big Deion Sanders. So in a roundabout way, I'm just calling Travis Hunter Deion Sanders as an athlete. I mean, but he really is just special ball skills, special movement. He's very raw as a receiver as far as route running, but I'm willing to wave that away because he split time and they barely let him practice on offense. So while most guys, I'd really hang that over their head, and I have clips. He has no idea what he's doing on some routes. He's just flowing out there, and it's like, whatever, you can get away with it. Most guys, I would really dog them and go like, nope, drop around. Him, totally get why that's happening, and I don't question his competitiveness at all. I think he's just a special player. He's lived up to the hype. Receiver wise, because of some of the lack of the polish stuff, but some of why I think mentally it's easier to go corner with a little sub package at receiver as opposed to the other way around. Corner is really a flow thing. You got to be in the game. Also, it's not just playing zone, playing man. NFL coverages are so complicated now, especially with how much you have to match patterns and really know what the opposing game plan is. So that's why it's not just like, oh, just put cover 2 out there, put him in man cover. There's more to it. And also this is my old guy blemish, is that he's sub 190 pounds, and there's not a long history of sub 190 pound receivers having long-term success. They've had spots. The 2 All-Pros since 1990 drafted in the first 2 rounds under 190 are Chad Ochocinco and Marvin Harrison Sr. And actually, Chad Ochocinco is kind of a good comparison for Hunter as a receiver. Like Ochocinco became a very good route runner, but if you watch the move, it's actually like kind of, actually, I didn't even realize that that's what you guys play like. But yeah, Hunter's special though. Like he's surpassed the hype even when I was watching him. But like other positions, like this is hard because like Jihaad Campbell is not a top 10 player for me, but he's the best linebacker prospect I've watched since probably I've been in media. And so 4 or 5 years. Because as a true off-ball inside linebacker, those are rare these days. The idea of one went top 20. Jack Campbell a few years ago. He's turned into a nice player for the Lions too, but that was just like a skill set. Maybe he can become one. It was an idea. Campbell's tape, from game 1 to where he ended up this year, you could see it clicking for him every single week. He has physicality, he has athleticism, he has size. A lot of linebackers now in the NFL are 225, 230. They're tiny. He actually has size. He cut a little weight to run better, but he has length. He's good in coverage. He can rush the passer if you want to do a lot of these simulated pressures that teams do now. Some coverage stuff he's still working on, but he can play the run. But like he's a guy, even though I don't have him as a top 10 player, he's a blue chip linebacker in a way. Like he is a top linebacker prospect. So that's one that's kind of like, to me, a no doubter, because you really just don't see guys like this. The other guy at the top of my board is Abdul Carter from Penn State. The G word generational is not being used on him. It should not be. I think he's very good against the passer, rushing the passer. I think he goes rogue a lot. He can cut inside, which is fine. A lot of top talents do that. But then also against the run, he can kind of get overwhelmed. So that's what kind of keeps me from giving him that label like, oh yeah, no doubter, because I do think he has some stuff he needs to work on. But if you can, he has 10 sack potential.
And he's played the position for a year.
Exactly.
For a few months. Yeah,
exactly. Like it's one of the, again, none of these guys are perfect prospects. There's never a perfect prospect, but it's like these guys have blemishes, but all the blemishes I can explain. And so that's it's hard. It's like if you're a pessimist, you linger on the blemishes. If you're an optimist, you go, well, this, and this. And there's a lot of that with this class. Even a guy like Mason Graham, a guy that I'm high on, Tetairoa McMillan, like a receiver from Arizona, who I think is a no-doubter top 10 guy, but then others that I talk to don't see him that way, because of the long speed. So all these guys just have one little thing that's kind of knocking them from being those true top 5 guys in any type of class.
Nate, generally the NFL frowns upon taking running backs too highly. It's viewed as a risk, especially with where the league is at now. We have seen it happen. I think it was 2 years ago, Bijan Robinson, Jahmyr Gibbs went pretty high in the 2023 class. In your latest mock, you've got Ashton Jeanty at 6, I believe, to the Raiders. That would be the highest a running back has gone since 2018, I want to say, Saquon Barkley. That being said, you also have 8 other running backs inside of your top 70. So they're good options. He's not, he's not the only one out there. Why is a guy like Ashton Jeanty worth bucking the trend, maybe taking a risk, drafting him that high in this class?
I feel bad not naming him as an obvious blue purple chipper, by the way.
Okay.
Because he is one too.
Okay.
Sorry. Yeah.
Maybe that's the answer then.
No, he is one. Sorry. I can't believe I just blanked on his name right there in that discussion. No, he's phenomenal. Not only is he explosive, can take any run to the house. His balance is exceptional. He is great in pass protection. He has receiving ability. So he's a true, when you take a running back high, you want to be on the field every single down. So, okay, can you pass protect? And he already shows it. Again, it's not an idea. It's not projection. All right, cool. You have receiving ability. So he doesn't have to leave the field. You can trust him for 20 plus touches as well. Again, when you take a running back high, well, we got to keep him on the field a lot. But he's exceptional. He really is. Ontario Smith, shout out Oregon, is actually who he moves a lot like of a player that I've been around. And people, Ontario Smith became a meme, but Ontario Smith in college,
he was so good.
Oh my God, it's special. And another one of the best athletes I've ever been around. And on top of it, Jeanty's personality and character are supposed to be off the charts as well. So that trusts you when you take a guy top 10 and that type of talent. But I'm interested to see how the running backs break down because you already mentioned how many I had in my top 75. I could have thrown another 3-4 in there. We just did a prediction pod where spicy takes or bold takes, whatever, bold predictions. And one of mine was that they're going to set the record for running backs in the top 3 rounds. The record, and went down the wormhole on this, but the record's 15 in 1994. So I don't know about 15. So but since 2000, though, the record's 11. And I think there could be 11 in the first 3 rounds, maybe 12, because of just how deep it is. But that brings us back to Jeanty. Okay, if he was just the only running back in this class and then there's a whole bunch of crap, okay, yeah, easily take him high because who else are we going to get? Now it's like, well, do the Bears have to take him at 10? Do the Raiders have to take him at 6? Do the Cowboys want to take him at 12? Why don't we just draft a lineman or draft this and then wait around and get insert name here?
Right.
Because there's so many guys and so many flavors. So, but he is a special talent. Like he's a very, very good talent. He's worth the hype as well. Obviously, he had the accolades in college, but he's very, very good as well. But this running back class is ridiculous. I'm actually curious who you guys like. You guys like Hampton, Caleb Johnson? Like from your guys' kind of perspective, just watching in college like that, because there's so many fun ones that it's like, even for me, I ask me a different day, I'd be like, yeah, I like this guy better because there's so many good ones.
I do like Omarion Hampton a lot. The thing that sticks with me, and I don't watch too much NFL before the playoffs just because of life, watching football all day on Saturday.
It's me and college where they inverse each other. Yeah.
But it seems like previously on the NFL, the most special running back was the most special player on the best team. And so you can't, and I'm not saying Ashton Jeanty is Saquon Barkley because Saquon seems like when he's healthy, one of one.
Right.
But if you have that great situation and you have a quarterback who can operate out of play action because of the gravity of a running back, it opens up your offense in such a special way if everything is clicking like, obviously Philly had. So that's why, like, I understand where you're like, why not take a 2nd round pick and get somebody else in that top 10? But if Jeanty is healthy and he's been super, like he's had his health over the years and like he gets abused and keeps going.
Right.
So that's why I'm like, I don't know, man, like taking a B+ gets you a B+ usually, and that's fine.
Yeah.
But when you have the opportunity for A++, which is what Jeanty, you try to hit him in the spleen and then he goes for another 70. You're like, there's no other guy who does that.
It doesn't matter who he's playing against. He looks like the best player
right,
on
exactly.
the field. That I always, if you guys at a smaller school, I know Boise shouldn't be called that, but they are technically.
Right.
I call it best player on the field itis. Like the guy should look like the best player on the field. Like like if they are at that, yes, I know who the NFL prospect is of this group. I've always been more of a running backs do matter guy. The whole discussion with that was that the bar, the replacement level has risen so much that is there the difference between elite and just an average running back or replacement level running back? And I've always been in the argument of, well, if you're giving a guy 20 touches, a third of your plays are going to one guy, he better be freaking good. And that I get, if you have a committee and you have two pretty good guys, that's totally fine. But it's not a position you can just wave away and just go, no, we don't need to address it. We don't need to address it. We'll just get a guy in the 6th round. We'll get an undrafted guy. And I've seen teams fall victim to that, the Cowboys recently. But it is, so I've always been, if there's a dude that is a top talent like these guys are, or Jeanty is, it's like, yeah, you take him because you're giving so much of your touches and so much of your plays are going to him. So they better be a good player. That's just that's just my NFL positional argument has always been. It's like the more plays you impact, the more valuable you are.
And to that point, Nate, I think Trey Henderson probably also fits into that mold because he does a lot. I mean, we saw big plays when it mattered most in the playoffs, but he's a guy who fits into your offense, like knows how to block. You can just plug a guy like that in and you can expect that he will do what he is supposed to do. He's not going to hurt you. Right.
You trust him. And that's more than anything. Reliability is the number one thing that NFL teams want. It's consistency, reliability. Hopefully you're an elite talent and that's what the reliability is. But people always wonder why is this guy on the field all the time? It's like, because the coaches know that he's going to do his assignment and that's why he's on the field. No, Henderson's a coach's dream. It's the old scouting adage is, can you pass protect? It's can you catch and can you take it to the house? But yeah, pretty easy to figure that one out. He reminds me of
the answer is yes.
Me a lot of old Ohio State running back Robert Smith. If you guys remember that name, and they're same size, speed. I'm just bringing up all old Vikings running backs. That's what I'm going to compare.
We like it.
Let me see if I can find a Mewelde Moore in here to compare him to. But I just remember my comparison for Jeanty, though, just to tie it all together, is actually, I said Ontario Smith jokingly, but Priest Holmes is the other guy that he plays a lot like that. And that's a guy that was a threat for 2,000 yards. I mean, that's a high-end talent in the league.
He was unstoppable in my early years of fantasy football. Priest Holmes, he was the dude that everybody wanted.
Oh my God, he scored so many touchdowns, and those Chiefs offensive lines were ridiculous back in the day. He had like what do you have? Yeah, 20, 21, 27, and 24 touchdown seasons.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Nate, we like to ask you about trends every time we do this show. Were there any trends in the college game that you either continued seeing on tape, maybe that you talked about with us before, or new things that you saw emerging that you're going to be watching for that we should watch for in 2025?
Holy crap. College teams love to blitz the cornerback. That is in vogue right now. Blitzing the cornerback from the boundary. Oh my God. It was every game. And not usually teams in the NFL, you see Steve Spagnuolo do it. And it's just that change up that you're like, or knuckleball. You're like, whoa, where did that come from? Like, whoa. College teams are doing it like every play, just one after another, after another, after another. And it's because college offensive coaches don't teach their guys how to adjust to that. And also they don't run plays they run plays into it that shouldn't be run. That's a longer discussion, but getting into run games, certain runs only work against certain fronts or certain looks. But that's something that it's working because quarterbacks couldn't adjust, offensive lines couldn't adjust, running backs couldn't pick it up. And it worked not even just against passing, it worked against the run because there's that corner knifing in there and just, all right, no one's blocking them. There's a little two-year loss there by the corner. That's one that really stood out to me. NC State's defense and how they played is almost Brian Flores-ish with the Vikings. It's quarters or cover zero every play. Quarters, cover zero. They all out blitz every snap. It almost looks like a Madden online defense because that's what the meta is online. Is you either run cover 4 or you cover zero blitz, and then either one's man coverage. That was interesting to me in the college level because college offensive lines and college quarterbacks can't really handle that consistently. NC State's defense, when I watched it, wasn't like all that this year, but it gave some offenses issues for a while because their guys couldn't handle that kind of heat play after play after play. That's more defensive stuff. Offensively, A lot of, I mean, the QB run game keeps evolving. So I see that kind of evolving. RPOs kind of feel like they plateaued. Didn't really see any fresh ideas on the RPO world, which I was kind of disappointed because sometimes I like seeing that because then I know in the NFL I'm going to see it in 2 years.
Right.
But didn't really see a lot of those ones. It was more just the QB run game was really. I saw some cool, interesting ways to fold the running back. Oh, here's one: split backs, 2 running backs on each side.
Yeah.
Teams are doing some cool stuff with that as well. And I think the NFL is going that way too. And that's old school. It's just really West Coast, but then put it in the gun. What's his name? Jimbo Fisher liked to do that for a while as well. But I really am seeing that too. And I think that's going to proliferate in the NFL a lot because you can get some different looks from those and it kind of messes with the defense. So look, split backs, 2 backs on each side.
Is there a position group you've sort of long lamented trying to evaluate offensive linemen just because of the lack of overall skill in the position group or evaluatable, if that's a word, offensive line skill? Is there a position group that has impressed you this year because they seem to have a skill set that you don't see every year from a position group?
Ooh, that's a good question. I would
like
actually
our corners looking advanced this year.
I mean, I would say one thing is that, I made the joke about the running backs don't matter and the replacement level.
Right.
That's happening with receivers right now. Receivers are so skilled now and so smart with some things that I'm impressed. It's really hard to a lot of my old knocks I used to have on a lot of receivers don't crop up a lot anymore. Doesn't know what he's doing on this route, doesn't know how to fill this. So maybe some of the offenses not getting, they're kind of getting simplified and distilled a little bit, but I just think the skill level of that position's gone through the roof because of 7-on-7. It's just, that's the natural answer. And so, receivers kind of just, I wouldn't say it's just like anything they particularly do, but I just think that the floor is so much higher for these day 2 guys than it used to be. Their receiver feels safe on day 2 when that position used to be so volatile that I think that's really been impressing me more. I would say, tight end wise, there's some interesting guys that were doing more stuff in line. I would say there was a epidemic in college football for a while where every tight end was asked to do the same thing. It was just picture the Clemson offense. Tight end is off the ball and then split blocking to the opposite D end, just over and over and over. Mm-hmm. Now they're actually getting asked to do a little bit more, not just saying the Tyler Warren craziness, but even other guys, Colson Loveland, Mason Taylor, Elijah Arroyo. These guys are getting asked to do more what the NFL asks these tight ends to do, and even if it's in some spread offenses. So I would say maybe tight end polish actually was a little bit more impressive. It's a good group. That helps too. But that actually impressed me more. But offensive line is always going to have me pulling my hair out. Not Oregon's offensive line. I told you that before the show, but there's some iffy offensive line play out there.
Talk about what? Okay, I just said talk about. What is the state of this year's offensive line class? It doesn't seem like there is a guy who just yep, take him in the top 5 and you're not going to think about him and you're going to see him in Canton in, 18 years or something. Are offensive linemen being coached any better? Are you happy with the state of skill set and traits and what they're asked to do? Is there give me some offensive line silver lining this year.
Silver lining? Okay. I would say the silver lining is that these guys are way more athletic than they used to be overall. Okay. I will say that again comes from the game is getting more athletic. Just overall. A guy can't be as sloppy. DeJuan Jones is an exception to the rule. There's not a lot of those sloppy maulers anymore. These guys tackles look like Armand Mambao from Mizzou, 6'4", 330, and can move, which is always what you're trying to get at offensive line. But I just think there's not a lot of power players there anymore, which is, Tyler Booker's one, but it's more athletic at the position, which I think is good. It used to be, he's athletic. Oh, yeah, he's 285. Of course he's now these guys are 310, 315 and can really move. And that's the whole sport, but definitely.
Is there like a prototype for that in the league right now? Obviously, you look at, a defensive line, an interior defensive lineman, who's going to be the closest to Aaron Donald? That's who we need to put on our defensive line. Is there an offensive lineman in the NFL that you're like, yes, we need to find the closest to that?
I mean, always it's going to be Trent Williams, but that's going to be that's so hard to find. But again, Trent Williams though is a perfect example of this. Is that he's not built like a typical in my head, a picture perfect offense tackle is Jonathan Ogden, who's 6'8", 6'9", 330, yada yada. Brian McKinney. Trent Williams is 6'3",
an Olympic level thrower. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Just 6'9". Yeah. All that. But Williams is 6'4". Moves really well, is a freak athlete, and everyone knows that. That is more the archetype. It's these guys that used to be just automatic guards because it's just height. And I think that maybe is why they're okay and being okay, or keeping them at tackle. So Williams is a good one. But also that's a 0.01 percentile player profile that you're trying to find. I think it's just something to wave away. I'm just trying to think of top tackles. Like Lane Johnson, of course, is another one. But again, and Lane Johnson, though, maybe is a good example of it's okay to take right tackles now. It used to be, has to play blindside, I now think of tackles, because so many defenses put their best rusher over the right tackle, because right-handed quarterback, that's how you affect them more. That's the theory again, anyways. That right tackle and left tackle to me has become like pitchers. It's right-handed, left-handed pitchers. Like, if you have a Roger Clemens, I'm good. If I have Lane Johnson, I'm good. Who cares if it's just the right side, because it's almost as important as the left side now. So maybe that's another difference too. Like an Armand Mabau or Darnell Wright, who came out a couple of years ago, is with the Bears now. Tristan Wirfs is another example. These guys are freak athletes. Oh, but he's a right tackle.
Panay Sewell move. Yeah.
Who cares? Take him top 15, and maybe down the road we can bump to the left side. Tristan Wirfs just went from all-pro right tackle to all-pro left tackle. Again, I'm bringing out the 1% examples, but that's what it's becoming more explainable, more arguable that you can do these things now. But also, I told you this before the show, but there's some good coaching happening with offensive line. Oregon's one. Florida is another one, who I think I talked to you guys years ago about the Florida offensive line coach. He does a good job. I should know his name by now, but there's a couple teams that I'm like, oh, you guys are teaching the right things, not just mentally, but hands and everything as well.
Well, so that it's an interesting transition, because I invented in the shower like an hour and a half ago. You use day 2 darts, right? Where you're taking a chance on somebody. I've come up with, I think there should be in your head, and I'm sure there is, a line of what does and doesn't impress you when you are scouting a linebacker, a safety, or receiver. I'm going to call it the Shania Line. What does and doesn't impress you much, okay? So when you are scouting an offensive lineman, let's start there. If that offensive lineman doesn't have blank, you just can't consider him a first-round pick.
Balance.
Is it hands, feet, balance? Okay.
If he's on the ground a lot, that is a telltale sign of athleticism. And not just getting tripped up. It's because so many have, say you offensive lineman really, boom, pops a guy and he's driving him. And then what the defensive lineman usually do, knock your hands and try and shed. If you can't keep your feet consistently, you're not a good athlete. It doesn't matter how you test or anything. That's really athleticism there. We think offensive line play is just pancakes and everything. It's really shielding. It's shielding. And then hopefully you get some movement on it. So balance is really the one. If a guy can't, this is why I was super low on Evan Neal a couple of years ago, which people thought I was crazy on it, but got one right.
The Giants questions will follow shortly, Nate. Don't worry.
Okay. But that was one, because he just kept ending up on the ground. I'm like, everyone keeps saying this guy's a good athlete. This guy looks like a stiff because of those things. But balance is what would that's a big blemish for me if they don't have it.
Where's the Shania Line for interior defensive linemen?
Man, that for me, that would be, it's almost length. And really just how you use your length. You don't have to have the longest arms in the world, but just how you use your length. So the Shania Line is just like, if you get swallowed up, I guess is the good way to put it. Mason Graham is the perfect cutoff of that. He does not have the long arms, but he doesn't get swallowed up all the time. So it's like, okay, it's not as big of a blemish. So I guess length would be the good way to put it, or power. Explosive play. Just keep rattling ones off, but I think that's it too. Yeah, if you don't have any pop to your hands. Safety, intelligence. Do you have any idea where the ball is? It's like that's really it. Also tackling.
Open field tackling.
Tackling is because everyone in the NFL is based out of quarters, essentially. And if you're a quarter safety, you have to tackle. That's a non-starter if you can't.
Nate, Who are your pet players in this draft? You mentioned Riley Leonard. I mean, we've thrown a bunch of names about here.
Riley Leonard's going to be out of the league in 3 years, and hopefully never have to talk about him again.
Who else you got for us?
Okay, I'll go position. Devin Neal, running back from Kansas. I really like him. I just think he's a ball player. My pro comparisons, he's like a smaller David Montgomery. Okay. Bears fans were like looking at me like I had 5 heads when I said that. I was like, Devin Montgomery's good, guys. Like, yeah, like, I know he's with Detroit when he had to break out, but he's one. I really like Damian Martinez as well at running back from Miami. Receiver wise, Torrey Horton from Colorado State. I think he's a baller. I'm probably the highest guy on him. He made my top 75. I think he was like 68. But I feel like I'm the high guy. If he was healthy this year, I think he would have more fans. I just think he's a very good player. Good range. I know the Colorado game 2 years ago, he broke out in that game, but no, just good productive player. Do like Mitchell Evans, even though I just knocked him from Notre Dame. I would say Donovan Jackson, Ohio State guard. / tackle. I like him best as a guard. I think he's an easy first rounder, and I think he will squeak into the top 30 somewhere. But I really like him. I like Marcus Mbow from Purdue, who plays tackle. I don't know if it's Mimbo or Mimbao. Those two have been giving me trouble this entire process. I need to pull up the beast from Dane Brugler. But Mimbao from Purdue is a tackle. I like him best as guard. Really good athlete though. And great hands and stuff, explosive. I'm going position by position, so I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Braden Swinson from LSU, formerly Oregon. Yep. I like him a bit as a day 2 guy. Active hands, just does a lot well. And also, I like guys that if a tight end tries to block him in college, they're like insulted. Like those guys, I'm a sucker for. Like whenever they have a tight end trying to, and they just what? No, like no. Seriously, like he does that, and I'm like, yeah, I like this guy. Michael Williams a little bit too. I'm bullish on him. I'm a glass half full guy. Michael, I think he can be it. I think he could be like Montez Sweat with the Bears, where he's a dominant run player, not an elite sack guy, more like a 6-8 sack guy. But I think he's just going to be such a good run player. And he doesn't have a lot of bad plays. That's why I just keep coming back to it with him. He's young. He's athletic. He doesn't have bad plays. There's something to that. I'm trying to think. He's linebacker. All right. Campbell. Jelon Walker's a lot of fun. He's edge to me a little bit more. I'm trying to think. Trey Amos, Ole Miss corner. Really like him. He made my top 40. He's probably going to be a round 2 guy. Just a smart corner. Just knows how to play the position, knows how good ball skills, good length and size. That's pretty much it for my guys. If we go position, Carson Schwetzinger from UCLA would be another one, round 2 guy. Just really instinctive, and you don't see a lot of coverage linebackers as good as him.
Not a Shedeur guy though, huh?
Not a Shedeur guy. No.
What's the beef with Shedeur?
No.
Yeah, we need the social content.
I have no beef with Shedeur.
We have our SEO needs here too, Nate. We need to talk some Shedeur Sanders.
Yeah. Okay, here we go. Engagement. No, but it's with Sanders, with Shedeur, and this is kind of what, even when I wrote about him, did my kind of profile on him, this is what I think. There's been a disservice with how he's being discussed, not just all the stuff with his dad, just him as a player. I think when people think, oh, Deion Sanders' son is playing quarterback, they picture Mike Vick, and then when you watch Shedeur, he's a distributor. He's more of an accurate in pocket player. Has some okay rushing ability. He's an efficient scrambler, but that's not how he's going to make a living in the NFL. To me, he's a guy that plays more like Kirk Cousins, Teddy Bridgewater. I've seen Andy Dalton out there, which I actually think is not a bad comparison, but Andy Dalton I actually think was a better athlete than Shedeur Sanders, especially coming out of TCU. They're running zone reads with Andy. Trust me, I know. I saw it firsthand in the Rose Bowl. There's Andy Dalton running zone reads on us. So, yes, I know what it looks like. Or an Alex Smith. But Alex Smith, again, good athlete and bigger. So when you're a guy that I think is more of a distributor in the NFL, okay, how do you play from the pocket? And Shedeur from the pocket is a little inconsistent for me. He going from 1 to 2 to 3, there's certain plays he's comfortable with, and he can be pretty good on it, and he can rip and fire. He's got a good arm. He's got good accuracy as well. Everything has to be a little clean for him. And because I just don't think his athleticism and his creativity, I don't think is very high either. I think he's the word I kept coming back to with him is elongated. Everything's elongated with him, like his motion, his step, getting to a read. He has to make sure that read is wide open, and then he throws it. Okay, so in the NFL, you have to win as a pocket player, but I think you already need work. And I think you're just an adequate athlete. That's a day 2 guy to me. That's not a guy I'm taking top 10. A guy I'm taking top 10 has traits and hopefully enough polish that we can work with it, or is super polished and has enough traits that we can work with more. Like CJ Stroud, pristine operator from the pocket, is still a good athlete. It's just that he doesn't want to scramble. And guess what he had to do in the NFL? And last year in the playoffs, he had to start scrambling, or in the playoffs in college against Georgia and stuff. He had to start moving and creating a little bit. But he wants to perform from the pocket. I think Sanders came and accessed that at the NFL level. I think he's just more of a fine athlete. And I also just think his pocket habits, he drifts in the pocket, which many people have talked about, is that if you do that, some guys get away with it in the NFL. Their names are Lamar Jackson, who runs a 4.4. Jane Daniels, who runs a 4.4, Josh Allen, who's 245 and runs like a 4.6. These guys are freaks, and they can get away with it. Sanders can't. So I think he needs a little work, and I don't think he has great tools. Day 2. That's what it kind of comes down to.
One of the interesting things about Shedeur Sanders is something that's interesting about pretty much every player that you're going to evaluate. It's that you have to take the context of their situations, right? That Shedeur Sanders was playing behind a nothing offensive line for the most part. It improved, but he struggled with, looking at pressure more than looking downfield at times. Who are other players where you're like, I think they can be, you mentioned Riley Leonard, I think they can be really good, but the system didn't ask them to do this. So I'm unclear on how they'll be asked to do that in the NFL. Or this guy lost his offensive coordinator 2 weeks before the season. This guy lost both of his best receivers to a transfer in the spring. Are there guys where you're just like, man, I'm pretty sure this guy is it? Or as the kids say, him. But also, that's what they say, Ty, right?
Don't ask me. I don't know. I'm older than you.
But he was at Colorado State. He was at Texas State. He was at Purdue. And it's hard to truly evaluate when their situations were pretty miserable.
Yeah, a receiver can be like that. Ted McMillan, he doesn't prefer Ted. I bet it's so hard not to call him Ted because
T-Mac.
T-Mac. Because I met him. He does not want to be called Ted. So I'm trying to respect his wishes on that. But it's such an easy
Tetairoa,
nickname. Yeah, it's such an easy nickname. Ted. I know. So I'm trying my best. I'm actually writing about him right now. He's my receiver 1 easily. I view him as a top 5 player in this class pretty easily too. And I'm probably one of the few guys that views him that way. I consider him close to the top 3 guys last year, Odunze, Neighbors, and Harrison Jr., more than the other guys. When I watched him, and he was my number 1 guy going into the year, I think that situation that he played in was rough. And some of the knocks that he's getting right now are kind of like, well, are you seeing what he's playing in? And especially, I don't know anything about this. I'm just, again, this is just me on the outside. His best friend is the quarterback. Quarterback did not play well this year. Noah Fifita was not good this year. And Noah Fifita had 39 throwaways this year. Noah Fifita had more throws that took 4 seconds or longer than anybody else. Ted McMillan ran more routes than anybody else that took 4 seconds or longer because so much was turning into scramble drills. Well, the number 1 knock on McMillan right now is, his energy and his effort tapers off in games. And then you look, they're getting blown out 28-0, 35-0, 42-7. Every game, they're getting blown out. I even looked it up literally before the show because I'm writing about it. No receiver ran more routes. Took 4 more seconds, sorry. 66.6% of Tet's routes this year are when Arizona was trailing. Okay. If you look at the first rounders last year, so 66, so 2/3. Neighbors, 38%, MHJ, 17%, Dunze, 26%, Brian Thomas Jr., 42%, okay? One of the high ones. Worthy, 20%, Coleman, 27%, Pearsall, 55%, Leggett, 51%. So he's playing in these losing situations with a quarterback that's not operating on time, quarterback's not throwing accurately, and you could tell Arizona's trying to make him happy and get him the ball early. Like, watch the opening series of every game of Arizona. one of the first 2 passes is going to McMillan, a slant, a screen, something. They're trying to keep him. Hey, let's keep our star happy. But his court, you can tell he's getting frustrated with his buddy. Like you can on film, it's palpable when you watch it on film. So he's a guy that I've kind of been like, you got to take in his situation a little bit. Could he be better at some of the things as far as like being the big tough guy and hey, come on, be the leader? I don't know. It's a receiver. And also I watch it and I'm like, I kind of understand if you're getting frustrated and you're trying to break 5 tackles and then you guys get the ball again, you're down 21. Like that would be frustrating. I get that. So he's one guy where I look at the situation where I'm like,
could have stuck to his Oregon commitment. A lot of people are saying he could have stuck to that and played in a lot of big games with a lot of Heisman caliber quarterbacks. I don't know.
He played at Oregon. People would be talking about way differently. I don't know. He's a player that's maybe the process has made me feel a little crazy where everyone just keeps trying to like nitpick him and bring up blemishes. I'm like, yeah, but when you watch him, that blemish, like the long speed doesn't show up. Like he's creating explosive plays. So I think he's an excellent player.
Nate, let's bring this thing home. It is time in this episode for you to play GM of the New York Giants.
Okay.
This is a very selfish question. Full disclosure. Like, what should they do? What?
Are they still in the NFL?
Barely.
I think so.
What should they do at 3? What is their draft strategy? Should they draft a quarterback? If you were hired, if you were the new Joe Shane or, setting your own mark on the sport, you are the Nate Tice, GM of the Giants. What are you doing?
Well, first off, my dad would be really happy. He grew up a Giants fan as well.
There we go.
We got there. I would, first off, I'm the GM now. So,
yeah.
But I would have fired Dable and Shane before this whole process, this mess that they created. But I would not draft a quarterback 3 just because I don't think there's a guy there for them to draft. I also think that they signed Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston because they knew that. I again, just reading tea leaves here. And I know they're working out a private workout with Shedeur right now. The timing of it is very curious to me. It was right after Shedeur had a couple other workouts. So are you guys they're trying to carry a little trade steam, go up there, be a little more subtle with it. But I think, it's either if Carter's there or Hunter's there, take one of those 2 and then just move on from there. If they could trade back, that'd be great. But everyone wants to trade back in this class. I actually have become more keen on the idea of them drafting a lineman first, whether it be Mbao from Mizzou or Campbell from LSU. One of those 2, because if you look at the line, it's like, they have Andrew Thomas, who's an all-world tackle, who's never healthy, but he's incredible when he's out there. The rest of the offensive line has always just been like, oh, this guy's healthy. This guy's healthy. Oh, well, we're missing 2 other guys. Or this guy, Evan Neal, is a bust. But we have to play him because we took him top 10. So we have to play him. So if they want to just default to offensive line, that's always been my preference anyways, if they don't love Carter. But I think if Hunter's there, run up and take him, because not only you sell tickets, you sell smiles, and and that's a lot easier one to swallow, the Heisman Trophy winner that's a special talent. So I think I do want them to maybe take a dart throw on a quarterback in day 2. Like I think they are primed to do that. I'm curious for which one they would end up preferring. I think this class, though, is whoever takes QB2 is going to be left feeling a little underwhelmed in a few years. Like I don't think it's that type of class you want to do it. Again, comparisons to the Kyler Murray class, which was Kyler Murray went 1, should have been the only quarterback in the first round, and the Giants took Daniel Jones, and who is looked as a day 2 guy for the whole process. So I would go BPA, whether it's Carter, whether it's an offensive lineman, whether it's Hunter, and then day 2 offensive line. And then go from there. And I think where they're picking day 2, if they don't want to take a quarterback in round 2, I think they could get an offensive lineman there, quarterback round 3, some way, shape, or form.
All righty. His name is Nate Tice, one of our best friends from Yahoo Sports, does fantastic work, both written word and, yes, the Football 301 show. We appreciate you stopping by here. I have one final question for you, just because I love to re-up this theory every time you come on the show. Since we did just talk about the Giants, I'm curious how Russell Wilson signing with the Giants is going to affect his future political career, presidential campaign. How does that factor in? Have you given any thought to that?
He's he is hitting he's got to get a team with the Southeast. We got
His whistle stop tour.
we've
Yeah.
had some good swing states. Colorado. We got Pennsylvania in there.
Right.
I'm curious.
Love in Wisconsin.
I love him in Wisconsin. He'd carry Wisconsin easily.
Yeah.
I think North Carolina he would do all right as well.
Okay.
But he doesn't really need to hit New York. It's a blue state, pretty stranglehold on it. So
Right.
I think he would be okay there if he wants to run blue. I'm just assuming, but it's Russ, so couldn't even predict that. But no, I think that's New York is a good. It's a good way to build up, maybe some population, some numbers for the popular.
Got to run up
the
tallies where you can, right?
He wants to go with it. Hey, he's going to chuck some deep balls in Malik Neighbors if he's the starter this year. At least that's a little bit of fun. That can win you some votes.
Yeah, absolutely.
There we go again. Nate Tice, right. We always appreciate your time. Very generous with us here today. We'll do it again next year.
I'll see you guys in 12 months. Thanks for letting me ramble a little bit. Great seeing you guys.
Of course. Our pleasure.
Okay, there you go, Dan.
Best.
Another episode with Nate in the books. What are you looking forward to most with the NFL draft?
I mean, sort of like what I said in the beginning, how everything reflects on certain schools. I always appreciate seeing coaches angle for camera time that are at the draft with players that were at their schools, seeing Sark or Kirby or Dan Lanning, any of those guys. That's always fun for me. Seeing the suits.
Yes. Seeing
the wild commentary. I always appreciate the ticker with best available because it's obviously there's a master list where these guys are coming in, but it just, I don't know. It makes me laugh a little bit that you're a team, you're the Tennessee Titans, you're the Seattle Seahawks, and you're just like, this guy's still there. This guy's still waiting for a call. I always like that kind of stuff. And I enjoy the personalities around the draft. I enjoy that people are making these definitive proclamations, just like, oh my God, love the Raiders draft. Love the Raiders draft. It's like, it might work, it might not. And you hope for the best. So no, I appreciate all of the excitement and hope that is generated by the draft. And the life-changing money and career paths for a lot of these guys is great.
It's very exciting. I always appreciate the discourse out on social media because you do have, for as much as this is one of those events that tends to bridge the gap between college fan and pro fan, you also have a fair amount of disagreement, especially among people who have watched a lot of college football. When somebody gets drafted a little higher than they might expect, Riley Leonard, who we talked a little bit about, is probably a pretty good example of this.
Yeah.
Riley Leonard's going to get drafted, and there's going to be a chorus of college football fans who are like, I don't know, didn't really throw the ball down the field at all. Whereas there will certainly be pro scouts, people who are a little bit more steeped in the pro game saying, well, look at his athleticism. Kind of like what Nate said. There will be players like that, inevitably, that drive a wedge in between those two schools of thought or those two fan bases. And I always look forward to watching that play out in real time. So we'll see.
Is there a Notre Dame player you're going to miss most?
Xavier Watts.
Yeah, anchored that secondary.
Anchored the secondary. We talked about safeties. He said intelligence. You asked him about the Shania line, which is brilliant. We need to keep using that, by the way. But intelligence, being able to diagnose a play, his play recognition is off the charts. So I don't know where he ends up going in the draft. I think he was just outside Nate's top 75. But Xavier Watts, as like the glue that made that whole defense work, is going to be somebody that I think is sorely missed.
Yeah. That makes sense. Mine's Tez Johnson for Oregon. He's tiny. I don't know where he's going to get drafted, but he was so dependable. The transfer and coming in from Troy, connection to Bo Nix. Him and Terrence Ferguson, who was in Eugene forever. I think he was a 4-year quality player. And he was just super dependable. Made huge catches, huge plays. And so hoping for the best for those two.
Well, for those of you out there who support us on forballers.com, I'm sure we will have a lively discussion on our Ballers Discord throughout the course of the draft. Of course, it is a 3-day event. You've got the first round on Thursday, and then it progresses through on Friday and Saturday for those who are playing along at home. Please send this episode to your friends. For anybody who follows the NFL, wants a little bit more in the way of details for what is to follow. Look, this is why we bring Nate on. He does an awesome job. Go and check him out again over at Yahoo Sports. That does it for another week of content here on the show. There is, as I said, a lot going on. We're not just plunging into this spring football season, but we've got the Nico news. Who knows what's going to be in store for us next week.
The spring portal is crazy names hopping in.
Spring portal. I can't even think about the spring portal because we've got so much already on our plate here that just kind of popped up, but we will do our best on this show to cover it as best we can, Dan.
Are we going to dedicate a whole episode to the FOIA on the emails at UNC with Bill Belichick and his girlfriend and the trademarks and the email back and forths and the very specific instructions on how to describe Steve Belichick and all of his many accomplishments?
Oh my God. We should do a full episode on that. We really should.
It's pretty wonderful.
We should. Maybe we'll talk more about that in one of these weeks to follow. For that guy over there, my good friend Dan Rubenstein, for myself, Ty Hildenbrandt, thank you again for downloading, for listening, for supporting what we do. We'll talk to y'all soon. Stay solid.
Peace.